They say that life imitates art, but in this case, fact might be stranger than fiction. The Conjuring franchise really takes the whole based on a true story thing to another level. Legendary paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were said to have worked on over 10,000 different cases. That seems a lot. So it's no surprise that they've been able to build a rather extensive movie franchise based on the pair's infamous work. So here are the top 5 real scary stories behind the Conjuring universe movies. Let's jump in. In at number 5, we have The Exorcism of David Glatzel. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is the third installment from the franchise, and like the film's predecessors, it's also based on a true haunting. The title pulls its name from the real-life court case of Arne Johnson, which made US history when his primary defense for murder was that the devil made him do it. The film explores Ed and Lorraine's investigation into this famous case, which started off with the possession of 11-year-old David Glatzel. The real-life horror began in 1980 when David became possessed by a demon, claiming he was being tormented by an old man who resembled a beast, with sharp jagged teeth, horns, and hooves. He became withdrawn and quiet, and his torment continued. David began having nightmares of the beast who promised to steal his soul. Scratches, cuts, and bruises appeared on his body, and visits from the demon became more frequent. The family owned a chair, now famously known as the Devil's Rocking Chair, that was said to be under the demon's power, and David would often see the beast sitting in it. The chair was said to move around the house, begin rocking on its own, and even levitated on various occasions in full view of witnesses, including the Warrens. In desperate need of help, the Glatzels called Ed and Lorraine to help exorcise the boy. They brought in priests from the Catholic Church to assist them, and the final exorcism was a success. The beast-like demon was expelled from David right into Arne Johnson, who was engaged to David's sister Debbie. Arne began acting strange and making the same growls and hisses that David would make while under the influence of the beast. Shortly after, Arne killed his landlord with a pocket knife, an attack which he described as like an animal. His primary defense cited demonic possession, but that wasn't good enough for the courts. He was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter. Coming in at number 4, we have the Amityville Horror. Okay, so technically this one is cheating because it's only briefly mentioned in the movies, but I don't care because it's worthy of a spot on this list. The Conjuring 2 opens with an homage to the Warrens' most famous case, the Amityville Horror House, which they investigated only 20 days after the Lutz family fled the scene. The true story behind the demon-infested house in Amityville, New York began in 1974 when Ronald DeFeo Jr. fatally shot 6 members of his family. He was arrested, convicted, and just recently died in prison. The home went up for sale and the Lutzes moved in the following year. The family reported disturbing paranormal activity, turning their new humble abode into a house from hell. Doors were ripped off of the hinges, hordes of insects attacked the family. Slime oozed from the ceilings and hoof prints were found embedded in the snow. Demonic activity was running rampant. The Lutzes called in a priest to bless the home, but he was allegedly met with demonic voice telling him to get out. The Amityville Horror Haunting has been met with its fair share of skepticism, but it's still a fascinating story and one they should consider exploring more in a future Conjuring universe film. Coming in at number 3, we have the Enfield Poltergeist. The Conjuring 2 followed one of the most famous cases of poltergeist activity in the UK's history, and the haunting still has a spell over people 40-something years later. Apparently, the involvement of Ed and Lorraine was greatly exaggerated for the movie, however the Enfield haunting is very much a true story. In the late 70s, the real-life Hodgson family found themselves at the center of a paranormal crisis in their ordinary-looking semi-detached home in Enfield. Single mother Peggy and her 4 children began seeing furniture move, things being thrown, and hearing taps on the walls. The activity seemed to center on 11-year-old Janet Hodgson, who later admitted to playing with a Ouija board before the haunting flared up. After an influx of paranormal activity, Peggy contacted the press, and Daily Mirror photographer Graham Morris witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. He captured famous photos of Janet seemingly being thrown across the room by an unseen force. With the attention of the press came more claims, as well as more eyewitnesses to the activity. Family members said that Janet had actually levitated and would go into trances. Like a scene out of The Exorcist, there's audio recordings of Janet speaking in a guttural voice, purportedly that of Bill Wilkins. He was the former owner of the home who had passed away, and and also a terrifying character in The Conjuring. Many people believe the Enfield Haunting was an elaborate hoax, however Janet told the Daily Mail, "It lived off of me, off my energy. Call me mad if you like, those events did happen. The poltergeist was with me and I feel that in a sense he always will be." Coming in at number 2 we have Annabelle. This demonic doll is so horrifying that she was given not 1, not 2, but 3 movies in the Conjuring universe. Of course her appearance amps up the creep factor with her grey porcelain skin and wide eyes that look straight into your soul. The doll we all know and fear is actually based on a rather innocent looking Raggedy Ann that was investigated by the Warrens, but she's just as dangerous and evil. Although Annabelle has her own nightmare-inducing backstory, Hollywood movie magic changed her almost as much as they changed her looks. Real-life Annabelle was a gift to a woman who lived in an apartment with a fellow nurse in the 70s. Shortly after receiving the doll, the girls began noticing strange occurrences around their home. Annabelle would mysteriously change positions and even move rooms throughout the day, seemingly by her own volition. As per usual, the haunting escalated, and they found parchment paper with the words "Help me" written in crayon scattered around their place. That was strange enough on its own, but even weirder was that the women didn't even own parchment paper or have any in their apartment. They decided to contact a medium who believed that the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a little girl who died in the area where the apartment complex was located. This put them at ease for a while, believing it was a human spirit, until Annabelle proved to be a malicious entity. Lou, the boyfriend of one of the nurses, took the brunt of the violence and claimed to have been attacked on numerous occasions. One night he was sleeping in the apartment and woke up to Annabelle strangling him until he blacked out. Another time he threw the doll across the room, big mistake, and he immediately sustained 7 claw-like slashes on his body. Today Annabelle permanently resides in the Warren Occult Museum in a wooden box with a copy of the Lord's Prayer and a label reading "Warning, positively do not open." And finally in at number 1 we have the Perron family and Bathsheba. This terrifying haunted house story kicked off the franchise in the first Conjuring film, setting up fans for years to come with a seemingly never-ending stream of horror content. The best part about the movie that captured our hearts back in 2013 is that it's based on an extremely unsettling and horrifying true story. In 1970, the real-life Perron family moved into the farmhouse in Rhode Island that was originally built in 1736. Set on a 200-acre property, Roger and Carolyn Perron thought it'd be the idyllic place to raise their 5 daughters. Their eldest, Andrea, said the family knew from the moment they stepped foot onto the property that something wasn't right. They were never made aware of the several tragedies that occurred on the land before purchasing the property, but the seller did provide the family with a warning after dropping off the keys: leave the lights on at night. It didn't take long for the Perron family to understand what the seller meant. The 14-room farmhouse was teeming with spirits, and some were incredibly malicious. Items would go missing, others seemed to move on their own, and they would frequently smell rotting flesh. The cries of one spirit would keep them up at night, and they learned to stay away from the dirt-floored cellar, which was a hotspot for activity. The malevolent entity thought to be the driving force of the haunting was Bathsheba. Born in Rhode Island in 1912, Bathsheba lived on a neighboring farm and had amassed quite a bad reputation by the time of her death in 1885. Legends say that she was a witch, however there's no evidence to support this theory. Townspeople came to this conclusion when someone mysteriously died in her care after a large sewing needle impaled the base of their skull. This made the Warrens believe she was at the helm of the haunting because the parents would report feeling strange pain similar to that of a large sewing needle's puncture. There's also speculation that none of her children survived past the age of 7, but again there's no definitive proof of this. The real Bathsheba's grave can actually be found inside the Harrisville Cemetery in Rhode Island. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with that list? What true story from the Conjuring universe scares you the most? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 most haunted items at Zach Bagan's museum. Jelly Bean Forever said, scariest one here is the Dark Queen herself, all hail and fear Lucy. A lot of the comments said this, that I am the most haunted item? Not an item. I'm a person. Show me some respect. I can be an object if you want me to be. I've been people's objects. Just kidding. Bad influence. Feminism, you know? Respect. Steve Cheney said, imagine coming back from the dead, discovering that ghosts and the supernatural are real, and then having to haunt a van with 100 plus other ghosts. Actually, that's fact. Imagine, like, you die and you're like, can't wait to haunt the world of the living, can't wait to and then you get trapped in a location where there's just other ghosts and you can't do anything about it, and you've just got to hang out with these ghosts all for eternity, and that's it, that's your life. Sucks. That would suck. Huh? No, it's like being forced, like being trapped in a room for the rest of your life with people, and it's like you're gonna like some, you're gonna hate others. It's like, no, like just let me do my own thing. Suko Yoti said, the Dybbuk box is the object that worries me the most out of all those listed. Facts, straight facts. The Dybbuk box is f***ed, and if Post Malone is scared, we should all be scared, okay? Malicious SX said, bet you won't read this comment out loud. I did, and you're welcome. Just did it because I couldn't find another comment. I was in a rush, so I just grabbed yours. Just kidding. Respect. Got an itch, I can't get rid of it. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and until next time, I'll see you later. Need to burp. That's how she said it. She was like, yo, fake. Yo, I lied. I think she lied. Never trusted her. Didn't trust those pictures. Didn't look like she was getting pushed, it looked like she was just jumping off her bed. So, you can't tell me otherwise. Janet? Is Janet dead? Janet's probably alive. What's Janet doing? Props. JK, what were you up to? Just kidding, rolling. That's what she needs to say after everything she's done. JK.